Hi, and welcome to another segment of Our Ventura TV. My name is George Alger, and today I'm going to be interviewing Joanie Blaxter, who is a food farm activist. Welcome, Joanie.
Thank you, George.
So, Joanie, what is a food farm activist?
Well, for me, what that grows out of is that I've been in the natural foods and products industry for over 30 years. And so I know quite a bit about nutrition, and I have also come to be the chapter leader for the local Weston Price Foundation, and that organization as a nonprofit is also very involved with how our food is grown.
Good. All right, well, today we're going to talk about kombucha.
Excellent.
All right, now not everyone has heard of kombucha. I'm actually someone who's been appreciating kombucha for a number of years, but I do know plenty of people haven't even heard of it. So what is kombucha?
Kombucha is a delicious fizzy drink that is really picking up in speed in terms of popularity. I was first introduced to kombucha, it must have been at least 15 years ago. But you can go into pretty much any natural food store now and find bottles of it in all kinds of flavors. It is not only really yummy, but it is also a really excellent health drink that is very supportive of digestion. So I think that's partly why it's becoming so popular. People are not only finding that they like it, but also that it really is giving them benefits that they're experiencing.
Good. And how do you make it?
Oh, kombucha is so easy. I encourage anyone who tries it out at the natural food store to really give it a try at home. First of all, you can go online and just Google by how to make kombucha and find lots of YouTube help. But I'll tell you, it's pretty simple. And I think you know somewhat from firsthand about how to do this as well.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it's actually was first started in Russia. And the original traditional way to make it is it's simply sweetened black tea. And then what you do to make it fermented is you add the fermenting agent, which consists of the good probiotics. And by good probiotics, what I mean to say is that a lot of people don't know it, but we actually have 6 pounds of healthy, positive bacteria and yeast that live in our intestines at any one time.
Wow.
And they support us in not only our digestive processes, but they also support our immune system, because more than 85% of our immune system is actually embedded in our intestinal walls.
Wow.
Yep. So you start off with this sweetened tea, and traditionally that's just white sugar because the probiotics love that best. And then what you do is you have to get your what they call a mother or SCOBY. And all that means is that it is, well, if you go to the natural food store and you buy a kombucha bottle, and on it it says raw or live, when you hold it up to the light, you will see inside kind of some filmy, it almost looks like jellyfish, very small. And what that is the result of the yeast and the bacteria that have been eating and consuming and converting the sugar. And what they do is they glom together in these soft filaments. And the older it is, the more it will look like a small jellyfish. I'm sorry to say it's true, but it is. And so you can see that, and then all you have to do is add that to your own mixture or get a starter, and it will grow and grow. And the more it grows, the more it ferments. And it's the fermenting that changes the flavor. It starts out as sweetened tea, and then eventually it becomes this really yummy, tart, sweet flavor. And when you make it at home yourself, you can control the flavor to make it exactly the way you like it.
Yeah. And because it's made with caffeinated black tea, and because it's made with refined white sugar, which for folks who are generally health conscious, well, they're going to avoid the white sugar. Speak to that, because, you know, you know, there are lots of different sugars in the world, but my understanding is white sugar is the best, and that it actually gets consumed as part of the fermenting process. So can you speak to that?
Sure. Well, the main probiotic in kombucha is a yeast, a good probiotic yeast called Saccharomyces boulardii. And what it loves most of all is cane sugar. And the nice thing about using cane sugar to make a kombucha is that it doesn't change the flavor substantially, nor does it, it is what the yeast likes the most, so therefore you stand your best chances of getting a really good brew going.
Nice.
Okay? Keep in mind that the probiotics, it's like putting seeds in a garden. You're putting the probiotics in this sugar base, and those probiotics are eating that sugar and converting it. So just the way, say, bees go out and come back and create honey, those probiotics are producing this really good, healthy mixture for you. So your mother is increasing in size, and you are getting more and more of these good bacteria and yeast that you need. So although you do traditionally start with white sugar, you don't have to, but the caveat to that is that it is more challenging to get your kombucha going just right. Sometimes it will fail, sometimes other probiotics will move in, change the flavor. So I always recommend for beginners that it's best to start with a good organic white sugar, and then you can experiment later. What I've started doing is really just having a plain sugar water base, getting that going with my mother so that the fermentation process is solidly in place, and then I choose a fruit juice that I like. I add the fruit juice for flavoring, and then I let it ferment another 2 days. My favorite, by the way, is pomegranate.
Wow.
Now, I've also had, and I haven't done this myself yet, I've had a honey-based kombucha that was absolutely fabulous. So you don't have to have caffeine in it, and you don't, but from my experience, you really do, it's easiest to start with the white sugar for sure.
Good, okay, so the sugar, though, does ultimately get consumed anyway, isn't that the case?
It gets consumed and converted,
right.
Yes.
Now, it's a fermenting process, and it has been my understanding that any fermenting process results in alcohol. In this case, I do understand that kombucha has a small amount of alcohol, similar to a non-alcohol beer, but can you speak to that as well?
Yes, you'll notice if you let your kombucha go for weeks and weeks at a time, it will taste more and more like vinegar, really. I've not really understood the concern about the alcohol content because personally, I don't really taste it.
Right.
What I taste is vinegar. And actually, if you go to the natural food store and you look at a bottle of Bragg's vinegar, if you pick it up, you will see that the sugar that it starts with originally is apple juice, and you can actually hold it up and see the mother inside, and that's why the label says live. Right. So, you know, it does not taste like alcohol to me, but I understand there must be some degree of it.
Oh yeah, and I can emphasize, I've never had any awareness of alcohol in it at all. I mean, I can't taste it, I certainly can't perceive it as part of drinking it, but it's just my understanding that there's supposed to be some in there. In fact, if I hadn't been told that, I never would have guessed it.
Right, right.
Now, the process of making it, as you've already mentioned, does allow you to adjust the flavor in great ways to make it sweeter if you prefer, or really more like a vinegar. And yet, you can add all the different other juices or things to it to kind of really personalize it. But on the other hand, you can just buy it in the store.
True.
And so tell me about any advantages of the kombucha that you can buy in the store versus just making it on your own.
Well, it's a lot cheaper to make it at home, as is common with just about anything. And I love making it at home. As a friend of mine once said, it's like having another child. And I love experimenting with all the changes in flavor. It's really, I think creating with food, to me, is the most fun kind of art form because you have this thing that you get to taste and eat at the end of it. And especially here in central Southern California, it's, you know, our weather is so ideal that it's the ideal temperature for creating kombucha is 70 degrees. So it really generates fairly quickly in one's kitchen. You don't have to do much about it. But, you know, you can always go to the natural food store, try some of the different flavors out. It'll give you a good idea about what you're shooting for, and then go home and experiment. One of the things that that was one of the ways that I learned to do the ginger. I tried that out, and then I went home and made ginger tea, and because I was looking for a non-caffeinated version.
Yeah, and then also speaking about the caffeine. So if we start with caffeinated black tea,
right?
The caffeine actually gets consumed itself as part of the fermenting process.
It does, but there's still caffeine in a kombucha.
A small amount.
Yeah, so if you're sensitive, you know, you just want to be aware of that.
Okay. All right, well, good point. Again, it's not something I've been aware of. I actually did delay even trying it because it's made from black tea, and therefore, you know, I'm not a real caffeine guy myself. So I thought, oh, okay, this wasn't going to be something for me. But someone else introduced me to the fact that, well, the caffeine is either there or it's so minor that it's not a big deal. And once I started drinking it, I realized, oh, yeah, okay, that seems to be true. I don't feel any of the effects.
Now I'm not aware of the caffeine being converted by the probiotics in any way. But, you know, I learn from folks all the time, so I'll have to go read up on that. I do know, at least at the natural food store, you have lots of non-caffeinated versions to choose from.
Okay. Yeah, in fact, about how many different types of kombucha brands do you have at your store?
Well, gosh, we have, I think, 3. Fermented foods as an item at the natural food store are just exploding at this point. And so what's characteristic of kombucha is that your main fermenting ingredient is the Saccharomyces boulardii. Now, on the other hand, that is not the same thing as what's called lactofermentation. So that is more a bacterial-based process. So, for instance, a live sauerkraut is more of a lacto-fermented foods. Nowadays, we also have a new product on the shelf that's local called Kavita. And Kavita, I believe, is the result of a lacto-fermentation process. So it's a non-dairy kefir, I guess would be the easiest way to describe it.
Wow, well, we could probably do a whole show on just that.
Oh, absolutely.
But we are just about out of time here.
Okay.
So if someone wanted to find out more, how could they get in touch with you?
Oh, I would be happy to talk to folks about this. I am the chapter leader for an organization called the Weston A. Price Foundation. Those initials are WAPF. So they can email me at wapfventura@gmail.com.
Good. All right, so we're just about ready to wrap up the show. Any closing comments?
I would encourage everybody to try not only kombucha, but any kind of fermented foods, as long as you want it to say live or raw on the label, because the benefits for the immune system just can't be, I can't even say enough about it. And just about everybody that I know who chooses to eat those foods on a regular basis does notice a difference.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Joanie.
Well, thank you for having me, George. I appreciate it.